Okay, in this video we're going to continue what we talked about several weeks ago when we were talking about parallel lines and the transversals of parallel lines and the ways that some of the properties that we ran into as far as congruency and supplementary um, ways that they interact with that the angles interact with each other. So the first postulate we're going to talk about is the converse of corresponding angles. Converse basically just means the opposite of corresponding angles. Okay, so remember we initially said that if two lines are parallel and they're cut by a transversal, the corresponding angles are the ones that have the same relative position. Remember, and we said, well, that would be the same thing as um, like top left, top right, and bottom left. All right. So those are the corresponding. Those blue angles correspond with the red ones. So this top left corresponds with the red top left. So one corresponds with 3, and um, top right corresponds with top right, so 2 corresponds with 4, and so on. So that defined what we were talking about when we were talking about corresponding angles and what the corresponding angles are. But what we're doing now is we're saying, okay, if we have corresponding angles and that are congruent, then that means that the lines that they interact with are going to be parallel. So that's what it means by having the converse. So it goes from what we learned about a couple weeks ago to just the opposite of being able to prove of using those facts to go back and say, well, if that's the case, then this is also the case. All right, a new postulate that we're looking at is the parallel postulate, and that just simply says that if we have a line M here, and we have a point somewhere that's not on that line, then you can draw exactly one line that's going to be parallel to line M. Through that says through any one point, there's going to be a line that's parallel to another point. So pause the video and copy this into your notes. All right, the um, the next couple of converse postulates and theorems, um, we we are talking about the alternate exterior angles converse, the alternate interior angle converse, and the perpendicular transversal converse. Alternate exterior and alternate interior. Remember, we had said that if you have parallel lines, that the alternate exterior angles are going to be congruent, the alternate interior angles are also going to be congruent. This just says that if you have alternate exterior angles that are congruent, then that means that the lines P and Q are going to be congruent because of that. Same thing goes with the consecutive. Remember, um, just to refresh your memory a little bit, remember that alternate means that they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So in this little drawing here, the P and Q are the parallel lines. So this red line here, or blue originally, means that that's the transversal, and angle 1 is above it, angle 3 is below it. So they're on opposite sides of the transversal, which means they're alternate, and 1 and 3 are both on the outside. They're not between. This right here that's the interior. Okay, this is the exterior because they're on the outside of it. Okay, so they're alternate exterior angles. Alternate interior, opposite sides. 6 is above it, 8 is below it, and they're between the two parallel lines. So that means that they're interior. Okay? Consecutive interior, remember consecutive means that they're both on the same side and they're interior. Okay, so 4 and 5 are consecutive interior. And it says if two lines on a plane are cut by a transversal side, the pair of consecutive interior angles is supplementary. Remember, supplementary means they add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so if the two inside angles on the same side of the transversal add up to 180 degrees, then P and Q, or the two lines, are parallel. Or yes, are parallel. And the perpendicular transversal says if two lines are perpendicular to the same line, then they're parallel. Okay, so it's just the opposite. Okay, pause the video and copy this into your notebook. All right, so we're going to do several examples. It says, when given that angle 3 is congruent to angle 7, which postulate can be used to prove that line A is parallel to B? Okay, so 3 is right here, 7 is right here. So we're talking about lines A and B are the parallel ones. We're not even worried about this down here. We're not worried about that for this particular problem. So A and B are what we're trying to prove if they're parallel. And so this L, line L, is the transversal. And so it says that angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. And so all we have to do, well, what's the relationship between 3 and 7? They're alternate interior angle converse. Okay, because we're proving that they are we're, instead of giving a pair of parallel lines and saying that the angles are congruent, we're saying that the angles are congruent, and that means that that they're that lines A and B have to be parallel. Okay. Next one, given that angle 9 is congruent to angle 11, so 9 and 11, it says they're congruent. Okay, so which postulate can be used to prove? Once again, we're not looking at this up here at all, at any of those. We're just talking about this down here. And if we look, and remember, 9 is an exterior, 11 is an interior. If you have an exterior and you have an interior, then that means you probably are going to have corresponding angles. And sure enough, 9 is top left and 11 is top left. So those are the corresponding angles converse. All right. When given that angle 2 is congruent to angle 16, 2 and 16. All right, once again, now here, lines L and M are the lines that we're talking about, and we don't have to worry about line B. Okay, so A is our transversal. So 2 and 16 are alternate exterior and alternate exterior angles, and it's the converse of that because we're going backwards from what we had done before. When given that the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 3, or angle 12, okay, 5 plus 12 is equal to 180, we know that that means that they're going to be supplementary, okay, and if we know that they're supplementary, we know that angle 5 we're going to suspect that we're talking about course or consecutive interior. Okay, angle 5 is right here, angle 12 is right here, and sure enough, once again we don't have to worry about this over here. 5 and 12, these are both interior, so this is the converse of the uh, converse of the consecutive interior. And you can either say the converse of the consecutive interior angles or the consecutive interior angle converse. Doesn't really matter a whole lot. Okay. So now that we've had a little bit of practice identifying which postulate we're going to be um, using, then we're just going to use that to solve the problem. So we know that this and this, the 6x plus 4 and the 8x minus 8, are alternate interior angles. Okay, and we know that alternate interior angles are congruent. So we can say, I'm going to put the 8x minus 8 first. 8x minus 8 is equal to 6x plus 4. Split the thing. We're going to subtract 6x. Collect our like terms. Cancel out the 6 and the x. We're left with 8x minus 6x is 2x minus 8 is equal to 4 plus 8. Add 8 to both sides. The 8's cancel out. We're left with 2x is equal to 12 and divide by 2 to isolate the x, and x is equal to 6, which answers our question. All right, next one says find the value of x. Well, if we look here, this angle is a 4x minus 6. This angle is a 3x plus 6. And if we look here, this is an interior. 4x minus 6 is interior. 3x plus 6 is exterior. And so these are, we can see that these are going to be corresponding angles. Okay. And corresponding angles, we already know also are congruent. And so we can set them equal to each other. 4x minus 6 is equal to 3x plus 6. Draw a line. We're going to say minus 3x minus 3x. Cancel out the x term. We end up with 1x minus 6 is equal to 6. Add 6. And we end up with 1x, or just plain old x, is equal to 12. All right, one last problem, or maybe two. Okay, so these angles here, we have this angle and we have this angle. We know that both of those angles are going to be adding up to 180 degrees because these are consecutive interior angles, which I'm just going to say they're supplementary, but I'm going to say they add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so we have 2x plus 6 plus, okay, this 2x plus 6 is this part right here, okay, plus 130, which is from right here. All that's going to be equal to 180 degrees. All right, we don't really need the parentheses. We can just say 2x plus 6 plus 130 equals 180. Combine your like terms right here. End up with 2x plus 136 is equal to 180. Subtract 136 minus 136. Cancel out. We're left with, I should have drawn the line down. We're left with 2x is equal to, that becomes a 7. 10 minus 6 is 4, is equal to 44 degrees. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not the, sorry. That 2x is equal to 44 divided by 2 divided by 2. X is equal to 22. There we go. That's the, because we were supposed to find the value of x. Okay? All right. Here is the last problem, last practice problem. We can see this angle are alternate exterior angles which are congruent. Okay? So we're going to say 4x minus 10 is equal to 3x plus 10. Draw our line and solve for x. Minus 3x minus 3x. That cancels out. We're left with 1x minus 10 is equal to 10. Add 10 to both sides. 1x, or just plain x, is equal to 20. Okay, that is our answer. Okay, so go ahead and make sure you have all the notes and all those theorems and postulates copied down, and take a look at the classwork. Make sure you answer. Make sure you ask any questions if you have any. All right, talk to you later.